Okay, we're live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to BU4U Family Connection webinar. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Jen Skelding, and I'm from the Student Life and Success team. We're going to begin this evening with a land acknowledgement. Brock University acknowledges the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. Offering a land acknowledgement is important to us today, especially as we race towards September 30th, Orange Shirt Day, and the National Truth and Reconciliation Day, which we gladly take part in here at Brock University. So whether this is your first student heading off to university or your last one out the door, we see you and we're glad that you're here. Now, I know some of you might be feeling really excited and some of you might be holding back tears and some of you might be eyeing an empty room and dreaming of that yoga room. All feelings are valid here tonight. Tonight is helping you feel confident and supporting your student as they start this next chapter. You'll get some practical tips, some honest reflections, and I promise there will be no pop quiz at the end. So let's meet our panel of experts and student leaders who are in the thick of the first year experience every day right now. Our team will share who they are, their role on campus, and one thing they love about being at Brock. Laura, you're first. Oh, I think Laura looks frozen, so I'm going to go past Laura and move on to the next. We'll circle back to Dr.
I think I'm good.
Oh, you're back?
I'm back.
Dr.
Thanks
Laura
so
Lane,
much. Hi, everybody. Hopefully I don't. Thanks so much, everybody. Hopefully I don't freeze again on you, but my name is Laura Lane. I'm Associate Director of Learning Services. Learning Services offers your academic skill development supports for our students here at Brock University. We help students in a whole wide range of areas to help them with their academic journey. And I've been with Brock University now since I started my undergraduate degree, but with Learning Services for the past 8 years. And I always love helping our students, especially those who are just coming in on their first year and are just excited to get their start and, you know, dig into their studies at Brock. So I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to meet all of you. And thank you, Jen, for having me.
Thanks, Laura. We're going to turn it over to Michael Giconte, Manager of Academic Advising. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Giganti. I'm the Manager of Academic Advising within the Office of the Registrar and Enrollment Services. Academic advising is really dedicated to helping students achieve their goals, step by step from year one to graduation. We talk to students about a myriad of topics, but any questions to do with their academic journey and questions in terms of their degree progression, they can always start with us. You had mentioned one thing that I love about Brock, and that would be just the sense of community. As a student, I really felt it and felt really supported by faculty and staff, and I still feel that way as someone who works here now. So yeah, thanks again for having me tonight, Jen.
Thanks, Mike. Glad you're here. We're going to turn it over to Nicole Finstad.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Finstad. I am the new student experience coordinator with Student Life on the Student Life side of Student Life and Success. In Student Life and Success, I develop and oversee new student experiences for students that are new to Brock, obviously. So you may have seen me through the Begin at Brock program, which was our summer social orientation program that ran this summer. We did an overnight stay in one of the residences and got a chance to become more familiar with campus. I also assisted with the new student welcome and academic orientation that happened last week, and all of the Welcome Week events that you saw last week. So think line dancing, think pottery painting, think, I don't know what else we did, a lot of things, crafting, just really nice welcoming events to the university, as well as first 6 week support. So for the first 6 weeks, really important for a lot of students. I've been sending them emails weekly to let students know of all of the great things that are happening on campus, all of the supports that are available to them throughout their time here, and things that are timely as they transition through the first 6 weeks of being at the university. One thing I really love about Brock, just like Mike, is I love how much of a community it feels like. It's great to see students go on campus go from being brand new and unsure to confident individuals who found their people and their place within the community. And I can't wait to share more with you this evening.
Thanks, Nicole. And over to Kaylee. So happy to have a student with us this evening. Kaylee, welcome.
Thank you, Jen. My name is Kaylee Gibson. I am a third-year sociology major and a minor in philosophy, and I'm also in the Law Plus program. But I'm also a student life assistant, so I work for Nicole, and part of my job is running a lot of the events that she spoke about. So part of that was the Begin at Brock program this summer, and then events, the Welcome Week events, and then events throughout the school year as well. And my favorite thing about Brock, similar to Nicole and to Mike, as a student as well, I would agree, the sense of community at Brock. Like, everybody you meet, whether it be staff or other students, people are generally so friendly and just excited to see you. And as a student, I feel like the staff are always just really like passionate about wanting to see you succeed.
Thanks, Kaylee. So glad that you're here. And again, folks, my name is Jen Skelding. I'm the Executive Director of Student Life and Success. And this photo on the screen here today is me at move-in weekend just a week ago. I think many of you will remember that, helping our families move in and get settled on their very first day. I'm a mom of 3 adult children, 3 of whom have been through university, and so I've been in your seat, and I know what you're feeling right now. So let's get going today, because we've got an amazing crew ready to share with you. I do want to remind you out there, as you're watching this live webinar, if you have questions, you can drop them in the Q&A. We'll have 10 minutes at the end. Those questions will be moderated. If we don't get to your question, we'll have some email addresses up for you where you can reach out and send us a question by email, and we'll be sure to get back to you as quickly as we can. We're looking forward to interacting with you and hearing all of the questions that you have. So now we're going to dive into one of the biggest challenges students face when they arrive on campus, academics. Yeah, we're talking about syllabi, time management, and why 8 a.m. classes feel like a personal attack to many students. So let's get this ball rolling. Mike, the first question is for you. You've seen hundreds of students make the leap from high school to university. What's one of the biggest academic adjustments families should know about?
It's a good question. I think in general, like the biggest academic adjustment, especially if you're coming from high school, is the fact that universities require students to really independently ensure that they're, meeting deadlines, staying on top of readings, because obviously there's tens of thousands of students, and we can't stay on top of everybody at all times of the day. So there really is a stress on independence, and that can sometimes be a bit of an academic transition. So there are resources that we're talking to students right now about that they should familiarize themselves with in order to really get ahead. So the first, and Jen, you mentioned it, was course syllabi. So if you're unaware what that is, a course syllabus is a document that students receive at the beginning of every course, and it's essentially what we refer to as a roadmap. It's going to outline to your students what are the weekly expectations, what are the readings they need to do, what is the material they need to be on top of, when our assignments due, when our labs required for attendance, et cetera, et cetera. It also outlines how to contact your course instructor, their office hours. And so what we're really talking to students about right now is you should be really reviewing these syllabi and comprehensively going through them, and quite frankly, mapping out the next 3 months. whether that's making an Outlook calendar or you know, I'm old school. I like just doing a physical agenda and plotting out each week. What are my responsibilities? What's due? Where am I needed? I think if you start with that now, it allows you to get ahead and keep track of your academic requirements. Other two resources I would want to mention are the academic calendar, which I do have linked at the end of this presentation. That's what students need to review each year to find out what courses they need to take. And so again, because course registration and course planning is an independent process, obviously you can work with an academic advisor, but the act of registering is independent. You know, students need to really familiarize themselves with what are the degree requirements in order to graduate down the line. And the last resource, which I've also linked at the end, is the fall-winter timetable. Again, we're talking to a lot of students that are currently in the process of changing courses or maybe reimagining their schedule for the upcoming fall-winter term. And the timetable is where they can view that information. What courses are offered, when, and where. And so, you know, those are, because this is a more independent process and admittedly a tough transition, I think it's really important that they familiarize themselves with those resources, because they are resources they're going to be using over the duration of their studies at Brock.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Really appreciate that. I'm seeing that some questions are coming in right now as you're talking. We're going to hold those questions for our time at the end because we might answer them along the way. But be sure, if you've submitted a question, we'll cover it for you in this webinar. You know, I think students really struggle with right off the bat, like reminding themselves that a paper is due in 3 hours. You know, that's a real welcome to uni moment. Laura, can you walk us through what students are expected to manage on their own when it comes to their academics, and how do they figure that out?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jen. I think like Michael had kind of mentioned, it's a bit of a shock coming to university and being on your own kind of for the first time, sorting it out without really anyone to help you structure your days and your time and whatnot. So I think realizing that you're in charge of your own academic responsibilities, like, which is really overwhelming and intimidating when there's a lot of expectations and maybe some you're not quite aware of, and you're just trying to find your way and figure out what you have to do. So I just think that's probably the very first step, is like, oh, okay, what do I got to do in this course to be successful? And a lot of information is in the syllabus. Like the professor provides that to, and they have to provide it to all of their students at the beginning of their class. And everything that's in there really should identify what the students have to do to be successful. But often we find students don't read that. They think, oh, well, we're going to go over it in class and that'll be enough. But the professors do rely quite a bit on that. In that document, you're going to see things like due dates that you're going to know on day one, that I've got a paper due November 27th. And so with that knowledge, in being able to collect all of that information from your first classes, you can put a lot of, you can move forward a lot with time management and planning out your term. But students don't have to figure that part out by themselves. Some will come in with a strong sense of like scheduling and time management, making good to-do lists. So a place where they actually can come to get started is us at Learning Services, because we offer in the first couple weeks of class workshops on just that. We have running this week, we had incredible attendance for Plan Your Term workshop, where we tell students, bring in your syllabuses. We're going to help you map this out. We're going to look through them. We're going to turn out, okay, you've got a busy October with your midterms, and what do you have to do to get where you want to go? So we do offer that support. And I think sometimes students think it's expected for them to just figure it out, or that they should be able to just figure out. And we know that's not always the case, right? So we do a lot of work in that space to help students. So we're a good resource there. And another resource that we have in Learning Services is they can just drop by, and we have peer support happening like all day through the week, where they can sit down with one of our peers and actually go through that stuff with them and plan out their terms. So we do a lot to kind of mitigate that figuring out and that really, like, you know, overwhelming moment of, you know, how do I manage my own academics, and oh gosh, it's all on me. But enter learning services. I think the other thing too, that students may not realize coming in, and that we're a really good support for as well, has to do with academic integrity. So what has happened maybe in high school is quite a bit different than what's happening in university for academic integrity. The expectations are different. And so again, like, that's why we're here, is to help students navigate that. We don't want students to be caught without realizing it, that maybe they, made a mistake and accidentally committed academic misconduct, right? We don't want students running into that, well, I didn't know and I got into some trouble there. So that's why we're here, and there are a number of resources there as well. And I think a lot of you parents here on the call may have heard about BU101. So we actually run that program. Many first-year courses have that as a mandated piece of their course, but in there is a module on academic integrity. And then we run workshops every 2 weeks. And additionally, we go into lecture halls and kind of brief students on, what they need to know in that particular course about academic integrity and academic misconduct. So the good news is like, while students are navigating their academics and trying to figure out, okay, what do I got to do? How do I have to do it right? If they ever have questions, there's always a resource or support there for them. But the key to that is really like encouraging perhaps your students to consider, reaching out and taking that step through our doors.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Really appreciate that. Now, folks, the questions are coming in and we will get to those. You have my word on that. And they're good questions. Laura does work at the Learning Center, which is also called Learning Services here at Brock. And we'll circle back to Laura as we go throughout the evening. And I also want to remind you, because I forgot to make note of this at the very beginning, that we are recording this session. And at the end of this, there are a list of resources that are linked for you. We'll post that on our BU4U Family Connection webpage as well. But Kaylee, I'm looking at you, Kaylee, because you've been there. You are the student who has been there now in your third year. What helped you survive the first round of midterms without becoming a caffeine-fueled ghost of yourself? How did you do it, Kaylee?
Honestly, my first round of midterms, I don't know how well I did at not becoming that myself, but I can definitely speak to what I learned from that experience. And I think for me, one of the biggest things was making sure that both physically and emotionally you're connected to the campus, because it's very easy to just isolate and study in your room by yourself during those really stressful times. And I think if you do that, it's really easy to feel like you're on your own, you're doing it all on your own. And I found that it made a huge difference for me in later semesters if I studied in the library. They have study rooms that you can book to study with friends, or even just studying in the library on my own, but surrounded by other hardworking students who are also in the same place, because that just makes you feel like you're not on your own, that there are other people doing the same thing. And with that, there are great events like Night Against Procrastination, which happens both semesters and is also a good opportunity to get work done while you're around other people. But similar to what I would add to both those things, and I definitely learned in my first semester, and kind of both Mike and Laura touched on it, is familiarizing yourself with the supports and services available early on, so that later when you get to those really stressful points, you don't feel super lost and like you have to navigate it all while you're already kind of overwhelmed. And so I think those were things I learned, that now, knowing that those things are available to me, knowing that if you're connected, it's less isolating and it's more motivating. I think those are some things that really helped me during exam season.
Yeah, thanks, Kaylee. Such great pro tips from you in your third year. Now, we do know coffee can help sometimes, but so can office hours. So can learning services, so can planners. And so all of those things are certainly critically important. So now we've talked about learning. Let's explore what happens when things get bumpy. And let's think about how students have the right support at the right time without families having to activate full worry mode. So Mike, when should families encourage their student to reach out for support? Kaylee just mentioned that, reaching out early. How do we do that without sounding like we're panicking?
Yeah, honestly, I would start encouraging them right now, even if they don't have a super pressing question or concern. I think it's always best practice early on to start connecting with your academic advisor or whatever support team you're looking to connect with on campus, because if you start that conversation now, I think it really normalizes that behavior of constantly checking in with that support team. And I think building those practices now is really vital for any student. Again, whether they have a concern or not right now. How do you encourage them reaching out without sounding like we're panicking? I think as a supporter, even just starting by sending them web links about our different offices and how to connect with us, and providing them with that information so that they know where we're located, when we're open, and going from there. I also think too, like something we often chat with students about in academic advising is just reminding students that it never hurts to ask. The worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is if you need help, the worst thing you can do is not ask and just assume you know the answer or guess, because you have a suite of faculty and professional staff at Brock that are here to support you, and we would prefer that you come talk to us. So I think just framing it in students' minds that you won't know until you ask the question is a great way to start, and again, really encourage and set those building blocks for them to develop good self-advocacy skills.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Laura, what are some of the go-to services that families should know about so that they can help steer their student in the right direction?
Yeah, sure. I think as far as learning services goes, like we have a different avenues of help supporting students, and one of them is the drop-in. So we have drop-in support for many different subject areas. It's a really great way for students to just familiarize themselves with our service in the space, because you don't need an appointment. There's a student staff member, so a peer that's going to be able to answer your questions. So it might feel a little bit more like an easy step in the door. So I might kind of mention, hey, why don't you stop by the drop-in? Students, I think a barrier for students dropping in is the schedule. So you can find the schedule on our website. So even pointing to the times that might work for that align with their subjects that they're studying, like, hey, did you know that Chem 1P31 has drop-in support at this time? Maybe you and a friend can go check it out. And it's just an easy kind of entry point that students can come in and start to become familiar. But really, I think what Michael said is walk through that door and check it out. It's a big way to get familiarized and comfortable with a supportive environment. And then I think, as far as learning services goes, again, something that's new this year is our STEP program. It's going to run, yes, in the fall, but say your student's like, yeah, no, I'm okay for this term. It's going to run again in the winter term this year. And that STEP program is something students can actually register for to help with learning services. It does come at a fee, but we have a learning skills specialist run this course. They meet twice a week, and we work on academic skills that align with that time of year. So day one, we're doing term planning. Day two, we're doing, the next session, we're doing time management. At midterms, we're doing midterm exam prep and strategies. So we're following the trends of the years for students. So I think, if that's something that students are they could use a little bit more hands-on support, it's a really great opportunity to get that. And just knowing about that it exists may, help encourage your students to attend. We also have a number of on-campus supports beyond that. So, beyond academics, while learning services is certainly, your place to go. If your student may be having challenges related to a particular disability, we also have student accessibility services for that. So while that service is going to help with academic accommodations specific to your disability and the impact that has on your studies, learning services takes a broader approach and supports all students. So that might help you to distinguish, I know we do get a lot of questions of when do you go to student accessibility services and when do you go to learning services? You always come to learning services, and then for specific reasons, then go to SAS. And so I think having those on your radar might be quite helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I
might have missed too. Yeah, I think I might have missed too, like the CARE program at Brock University. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from all these along the way, but just to put kind of like, the note out there that students can refer themselves, they can refer them others to different services across university, one of which is our consultations. They can self-refer, a staff member might refer, a friend can refer them. But we also have the CARE program that helps a little bit more with, non-academic supports for students. So if you're worried about your student, I believe even parents can put in a CARE referral for that. And like I said, I'm sure you're going to hear about that through the year, but those are probably my 3: learning services, CARE, and SAS as your like academic and / non-academic support services that'll help your student in a pinch.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, we will have Karen Connect here in the October webinar speaking about just that thing. Any student, anytime, any concern, you can submit it and there'll be wraparound supports. Nicole, how about you? You're on the front line with new students. What's your advice for families who want to support students from the side, but are still secretly checking Find My Friends app on their phone for movement? Very similar to me. What's your advice, Nicole?
Yes, thank you. I can confirm as a graduate of Brock, thankfully Find My Friends app wasn't existing when I was in university because my mother would check that all the time. So I definitely understand the need to want to make sure that your student is well taken care of and adjusting okay. And it's hard not to be there for them to help them figure it out. It is also challenging sometimes to figure out where that fine line is between helping and overstepping. You want them to know that you're there for them. They may not want you to, show up for every class with them or share their emails with you, but just keep the lines of communication open. Try not to push for information. Obviously, embrace when they do come to you for assistance, and you're there with your stack of resources and your news articles that you found, so you can give them those supports. But also letting them become self-advocates, like Mike said. And also, sometimes it can be hard from the outside, seeing them head towards a path that wouldn't be your first choice. But it's okay to let them make those mistakes. Obviously, if things go, too far off the rails, we want to avoid that from happening. We want to swoop in and be able to help them. But it's okay to let them make mistakes, understand the consequences, and then help them problem solve to move forward. I think we've all mentioned this, but stay informed with what's going on campus. They're great conversation starters. Social media is a great place to check to see what's going on. Maybe encourage them to try new things. Also, the newsletters that Jen sends out through our BU4U Family Connection, and the Brock News is also a great way to see what else is going on campus and maybe encourage students to try new things. Understand that they may not want to share everything with you or be consistent with their sharing, but know that you're there to support them. And even though it may seem scary, encourage them to seek supports at Brock. Like Mike mentioned, we'd rather you ask than not ask. And all of us here are here to support and help students through this journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Kaylee, let's hear from you for a moment. Have you ever had a moment where you should have reached out earlier, but you didn't? And Kaylee, there's no judgment here. You know this. This is just a moment for you to share from your learned experiences.
Yeah, thank you. And absolutely. I think for me, it wasn't actually first semester for me. I think because it was all new, I was very locked in first semester and really focused. But because going into later semesters, I was more comfortable. I think in my second semester actually is where I found I had started to fall behind a bit. I just didn't stay as on top of things. I got a little too comfortable. And I did reach out eventually and managed to succeed, but definitely under a significant amount of stress having not reached out earlier. And again, that just goes back to kind of what I said earlier and people have touched on, as I think it would have really helped me to know about those services beforehand, like things like personal counseling, which is very easily accessible through Brock, through the telehealth services. And I think accessing things like that, and as well, like going to speak with a learning skills specialist, like had I known about, or had I looked into those things prior to and didn't have to kind of rush under when I was already stressed, it definitely would have made it for a smoother semester kind of dealing with that feeling like I was falling behind.
Yeah, thanks, Kaylee. Really appreciate you sharing that. And now we're going to shift to something that I know all of you are feeling at some point in time, or maybe feeling it even right now. The changing parent-student, parent-child dynamic that you have. You've gone from being the director of your child's show to sitting in the audience and watching it. And this is a unique time of life and also a really wonderful time. So let's move on to talk about some of the transitions and hear from our folks, our panel here. Nicole, what are some of the largest life transitions that show up in the first month? And how can families help their students feel supported without immediately driving to campus with a casserole?
Absolutely. A lot of students are experiencing living on their own for the first time. And even if they're living in residence, it might be their first time doing their laundry, having to figure out their meals on their own, or even grocery shopping for themselves. It can also be really overwhelming to leave your hometown and be in a new environment. And even though you're surrounded by thousands of other students, you can still feel lonely. Some things to suggest are, if they're feeling homesick, try asking or scheduling regular FaceTime sessions to check in and discuss how the day or week has gone, even if it's just a vent session about how their roommate is annoying them, or how their professor is is too much of a fast talker during their lectures. Just letting them be there to vent, and like I mentioned earlier, keeping those lines of communication open. And then also try to encourage them to try new things and get involved, whether it be sports, joining a club, or accessing services on campus like the Student Wellness and Accessibility Center Hub, the Black Student Success Center, Hadiya Ganhouse, or any other services and supports that are there to support the community at Brock. They can find their people, their like-minded individuals. It can be easy to go to have the thought to give up, to go home when things get challenging, but try to acknowledge that it can be challenging at times, but it will be okay. It'll all be okay. And to try and stick it out and set small obtainable goals. Those goals could be, if they're having troubles making friends, to try and sit next to a person in the class that you've seen every class and they look kind of cool and you want to say hi to them, or encourage your student to go to an event, sit next to somebody at lunch, or even knock on a floor mate's door and speak to their Dawn. Or join a club, try something new. It seems scary, but almost everyone that tries it really is glad that they did. They may feel alone, but they're guaranteed that there are others who feel exactly like them. They're more than welcome to come into our office. We are more than welcome to walk them to a service, to go to an event with them. We are running a few pre-event meetups for large events that are happening in the next couple weeks, so that even though it may seem intimidating to go on your own, there's a bunch of other people who are also on their own that need to go or want to go as well. We'll go with you. And just really ask anyone for help, anyone for assistance, and not be afraid to put yourself out there. It can be scary, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Excellent. Kaylee, what helped you feel more at home during that first month? When everything felt so new or even slightly terrifying, how did you handle it?
I think for myself, again, this was something that I learned through time, because I wouldn't say I did a great job of this my first year. I was very much that student who I went to campus, I went to class, and then I went home because I live at home. So I was very disconnected at first, and it made a drastic difference my second year. I made a conscious effort to get involved. And I think, as Nicole was saying, going to events and things like that, even if that means going on your own, there are other people who also go on their own, or like she said, there are event meetups where you can meet up with a group of people who are also going to something on their own. Beyond that, I think just kind of pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and like both Mike and Nicole and Laura have all talked about, in terms of advocating for myself, whether it just meant walking into the career education office to talk to a Law Plus consultant, because that's how I applied going into second year, which is a unique path, but that just came out of walking in and talking to somebody. So whether it just means kind of dropping in and making that connection, or going to events. I think we have something like 200 clubs on campus. So just making that effort to look at find those things, but it has to be a student choice at a certain point. Like, you have to make the decision, like, I want to be involved and I want to make those connections, and doing that was what really made campus feel like home for me.
Yeah, Kaylee, that's excellent. When I think about the number of clubs on campus, I am astounded. Any student can start any club, anything that they desire. It can work through a club process with our Brock University Students Union, BU4U. So that's a great example. Thanks, Kaylee. Hey, this one's open to any of you to answer. From your perspective, what's one small thing families can stop doing and one thing they can start doing to support their student in this transition?
I can start with that one. I guess this kind of answers both the starting and the stopping, but much like I said before, I think now starting to have that conversation in a positive light about how empowering it can be to go talk to an academic advisor or a faculty member or connect with learning services. You know, in my opinion, I see university as obviously a time for academic growth for students, but it's also a huge moment in terms of personal growth. And one way to do that is to independently, you know, reach out when you need help, and if it feels really good. You know, I think of myself when I was a student, and you know, the first time I went to a professor's office hours or met with my academic advisor, it kind of made me feel like an adult, and it really helped build my self-confidence. And so, you know, subtly, you know, when you're talking to your child, like subtly mentioning to them, you know, how you know, positive reaching out and getting answers can be in terms of an experience, I think is a great way to frame that for them.
Thanks, Mike. You know, it's a learning curve for everyone, for sure. And one thing that I've been really resonating with as our presenters have been sharing is that here at Brock, we have a pervasive mentality that every door is the right door. So a student can go to any door on campus and ask, hey, how do I find out where the clubs are? Or how do I get engaged in intramurals? And I see Nicole will be sharing, or our moderator will be sharing up in the link to BU4U, a place where a student can type in a question and find an answer. How do I find clubs? They can type that in and find the answer. So that's an important thing as students really are on this cool journey. So let's close this section with a fun one, or what we hope is a fun one. To keep your connection going with your student, here are a few conversation starters for the first few weeks while you're FaceTiming, or while you're calling, or while you're texting. You might want to try, what's been the most surprising part of your first or second week? You might want to ask, have you found a quiet study space? So that's a subtle hint, but also opens up the conversation to, where are you looking around campus? What's one thing that you're proud of already as you've started your university journey? Any campus events you're thinking of checking out? You can also, parents, you can also check Experience BU to find out what's happening on campus. Over 4,000 events are posted annually for students. What's one new thing you've tried this week? Here's a good one. What's your go-to lunch spot on campus so far? There are a number of places around campus where students can grab a good bite, which includes our residence dining halls, but also many places just off campus and on campus that are not residence dining halls. And here's an important one. What class feels the most like a roller coaster right now? Because we know some of those first year classes might feel a little bit uncertain. And that would be a good time for you to be talking about, now would be a good time before add drop or any other deadlines, about what might your student be thinking about the classes that they're experiencing. Next up, we're just going to go into some final rounds here, and before we move to answering your questions that have come in throughout this webinar. Quick lightning round guess. What's one thing students should consider doing in the next month or two to feel really connected? Laura, let's start with you.
I would say, from my perspective, come to our group academic support drop-in. So come to our drop-in tutoring sessions. You can build the best learning community for your subject area that way, you know, and friends that study together stay together, I think. So I would say come to our drop-in. You'll build a learning community there.
Thanks, Laura. Really, I agree. Mike, what about you?
I'm biased because I work in this area, but connect with your academic advisor or attend a professor's office hours. Even if you don't have any major questions, it's just a chance for you to introduce yourself and get to know the advisor for your program.
Yeah, I love that, Mike. Small anecdotal insight here. Last year when I was teaching a course, a third year course, a student would pop in and all we'd talk about is what we're reading right now, not academically, what we're reading for fun. And you know, that student and I still keep in touch to this day. Office hours can be anything to get to know your professor. Nicole, that might be a great segue for you. Do you have one next up?
Yes, I actually run a program called Coffee with a Prof, where first-year students are given the opportunity to connect informally or socially with their first-year professors over a cup of coffee on us to talk about life, to talk about, you know, career aspirations in their field, to talk about any tips and tricks a professor may have for surviving university. Outside of office hours. So not necessarily course talk, but maybe talking about passions, hobbies, anything that they may be connected with, to get to know your professor better. Sometimes it can be scary or intimidating seeing somebody stand up at the front of a giant lecture hall. They're telling you all of these things that they are expecting of you, but they're people too, and they really enjoy getting to know their students just as much as we do. So students will be sent out an email probably in a week or two, encouraging them to enroll in the Coffee with a Prof program. So I hope everyone stays tuned for that.
Thanks, Nicole. Kaylee, I'm dying to hear from you. What's your one thing?
My one thing would just be to attend an event. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a bigger event or even just a workshop, but going to those things is how you can make those connections and you can meet other students. Even if you go to a workshop and you're sitting next to someone and you just end up saying hi, maybe you make a new friend that way. So I would just say keep an eye on Experience BU, which is the website that has all the events, both from departments, clubs, intramurals, sporting events, like everything is on there. So just look through there and just choose something, and that can be a starting point. And then maybe from going to an event, you'll want to go to more things going forward. So yeah.
Thanks, Kaylee. All right, that was great. Now we've got a bunch of links here for you that seem a little bit overwhelming. I know now that I'm thinking about this at the end of our webinar. And we are going to move to questions and make sure that we've covered everything that you've been submitting. Remember, this PowerPoint I will email out to you, everyone who registered for this, and the recording as well will be posted on our BU4U Family Connect webpage. And we can be posting some links over the next few minutes until the end of the webinar. So I'm going to come here because we're going to open it up to some of the questions that have come in. And I'm just going to back us up so that we have some of these links here because, Mike, one of the first questions was for you. How does my student find who their academic advisor is?
You would find your academic advisor's contact information through the Find Your Advisor directory, which is linked on this page that's open right now. If you just Google Brock Find Your Advisor, it'll bring you right there. When you go to that page, you'll see every major program at Brock, who is the assigned advisor, what's their email, and how to book with them. Ergo, what booking platform do they use? I'll also mention really quickly just how academic advising is structured, just so you're aware. So every program has a dedicated program advisor. There is also the team that I manage, which is simply called Brock Academic Advising, and we're in the office of the registrar. We primarily deal with supporting students that are on facing academic probation or suspension. However, we'll also talk to any undergraduate student that stops through our lobby. And so we very much structure our office like a walk-in clinic. We were primarily drop-in models. So every day of the week, there's, Monday to Thursday, throughout the week, there's drop-in times where students can come by, talk to an academic advisor. Either we can answer the question if it's more general, or if it is maybe more, maybe more advanced and needs to be referred to the program advisor or somewhere else on campus, we would refer accordingly. But yes, if your child is unaware of who their program advisor is, start by sending them the the Find Your Advisor directory that I have linked there.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Laura, this next question is for you. Some people have been asking more about the STEP program. Can you tell us a little bit more about, if we're interested, how would we find out more?
Yeah, of course. So the STEP program is a course that you can take that is academic skill development course. It's the one that's taught by an instructor. For more information, you can go to Learning Services website and just look. It's called under our academic development programs. And it's a course you register through the Reg office the same way you register for all of your other courses. And it's called STEP ONOO or 0NOO. And you can learn out more on our website. You can, of course, email learning@brocku.ca, and I will give you so much information about it. But it's very easy to register as you do with any of your other courses. And that program really is a great way to ensure that your student is, kept on track with a little bit more support from a professional staff member throughout the term. We have really great success and feedback from students saying that this really helped them kind of get started and get focused and to move along in their program. And like I mentioned earlier, it's still eligible. There's still room in STEP for this fall. But say your student doesn't realize right now that this would be a helpful thing for them, because sometimes they need to figure out their way first, or maybe they're coming in confident and things change along the way and they'd like more support. That's why this year we're offering it in the winter as well, so that we can get students back on track if they're feeling like maybe they're getting a little bit off track. But yes, please go to our website, check out the STEP program on there. And if for whatever reason you're having trouble navigating, just send me an email. I respond to the learning@brocku.ca email, so that's the best way to get a hold of me directly.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I'm going to ask someone in our guest panel to put the Care and Connect link in as well for parents. Remember, any student, any concern, anytime. So a number of the questions that have been coming through are, I'm hearing about lonely students. I'm worried about my child, not making friends, not reaching out. Listen, Care and Connect, that's for you. Submit it, put it in, tell us as much as you like or as little, and we will reach out and find out more about what's going on. So let us support if that's something that you're dealing with. Nicole, anything from you about how to really help students get engaged? What do you, or Kaylee, what do you suggest? Kaylee, you said just go to an event. Nicole, where might we find these pre-meetup events? Where could we find those?
Absolutely. So a lot of our pre-event meetups can be found on Experience BU. I know that Jen talked about that before, but that is our platform for all things happening at Brock, whether they be academic, hosted by departments, like Learning Services does their workshops. All of those are found on Experience BU. Drop-ins for different academic advisors are found there, and then all of our social events as well. So for example, tomorrow we're running a beach volleyball event. We're having a pre-event meetup because it is happening across campus, and not a lot of new students will know where that is. So we will be meeting in a central location with a sign, and we'll all walk over together. Next week, we're also planning on hosting a pre-event meetup for the Steel Blade Classic, which is our traditional first hockey game of the year. Again, we will all meet together and go take the bus downtown to the event. And it's just a chance for students to kind of, if you don't really want to talk to somebody yet, but you want to go and you don't want to go alone, just linger in the background and then join the bus. And then hopefully you get seated with somebody that you are interested in talking to or that you don't know and just say hello. And then a friendship starts from there. I know it can be really, I guess, easy for us to say, just try it. But honestly, you need to encourage them to just try it. I did see a question in the Q&A box there that said, I'm not sure if my student is going to go to any of these things that I'm talking about. I encourage them to look at the clubs, because even if they think their hobbies and interests are too niche for a club, I guarantee you there's a club. There is an anime club on campus. There's a Lego club on campus. There are folks that play Dungeons and Dragons. There's video games. There's crafting. There is literally a club that is sitting and drinking tea and doing cozy crafts. That is a club. So whatever their interests are, I guarantee you they can find a club, find their people, find their community, or they can start one, as Kaylee mentioned. It's really easy to just start a club, find people that are all interested in the same things you are, and build your own community. A lot of folks meet online as well, but again, we just encourage them to come to campus. Another good resource, and I will make sure to put this in here as well, but Student Wellness and Accessibility offers Campus Connections, which is a social prescribing program. They will match your student with a mentor who will go to events with them. They'll do a meeting with them, see what they're interested in, what their likes and dislikes are, and go to a club meeting with them or go to an event with them so that they're not alone. They've already met this mentor person. And then once they kind of get their foot wet and they realize it's not so scary, the club mentor or the mentor kind of backs off and lets them flourish on their own. So that is run through the Student Wellness and Accessibility Hub. The hub also offers peer-to-peer drop-in support Monday to Friday. And students can go talk to peers about anything. It can be regarding nutrition, sleep, just needing some sensory time in a nice, cozy environment. Just somebody to vent to about their day. So Student Wellness and Accessibility is also an awesome resource. I'm sure they will also be hosted on one of these webinars in the next coming months, but I do have their information included under Student Wellness and Accessibility. One last thing I will mention is the BU4U website. Jen mentioned it earlier that you can just go to this website, search anything, and it'll pull up a bunch of different links and resources that can take them directly to the pages they need instead of trying to search the depths of Google. So on the BU4U page, underneath the Ask Me button, there is a search bar. If you type in clubs, 4 different options pop up: faith-based clubs, sports clubs, BU4U clubs. They can click directly on the link that takes them to the page that shows them where to go. You can do the same thing with lockers. You can do the same thing with academic advisors. So anything that takes them right to the page, if Google seems a little overwhelming and not sure where to click, that Ask Me bar on the BU4U page is so helpful.
Thanks, Nicole. That's a good plug for BU4U for sure. One thing that I also just want to remind parents as someone who's been there, that give it some time. We are just at the beginning of the second academic week. And these settling in times, while hard, will move forward. And so give it some time. Give it lots of love. Give it lots of attention. And give it some time for your student to settle in. Everything, it's like drinking from the fire hose right now. And some are thriving and some are just beginning to lean in now. And so remember, every door is the right door here. So if you need more support, right now on campus, for instance, there are booths set up that have big Ask Me signs. And your student can walk up and ask any peer sitting there a question about anything. Where is this classroom? To how do I find out about clubs? To how can I sign up for intramurals? Our Ask Me peers are ready and prepared to respond to students. These are students who have been there, and they're excited about making sure that new students feel welcome at Brock and prepared to handle what's in front of them. Kaylee, I'm turning it over to you for some last words here.
The last thing I would say, and Nicole touched on this a bit, but I would encourage you to remind your students that a lot of the staff in different departments are also students. So most departments have student staff, whether it be the Black Student Success Center or Hadia Deganhas, which is the Métis, First Nations Métis Inuit Student Center as well. Student Wellness and Accessibility has student staff. So when they're going, it's not necessarily like you're talking to someone, I mean, we're technically adults, but who feels more adult than you, but there are other students there as well to talk to and to support. And a lot of those other centers also have drop-ins. So even if maybe they're too nervous to go to an event, if they just go to a drop-in, like at the Black Student Success Center or Hadia Deganhas or the Wellness Hub, because those are all just really cozy places that you could just go hang out. You can color for a bit first if you're nervous to kind of interact with people, but just hanging out there, you might meet someone else. So that would be my last thing in terms of making connections, especially if a student is a little more nervous.
100%. Thanks, Kaylee. And all of these things we'll be publishing monthly for you in the newsletter. So be sure that you're registered for the newsletter. If you click on into the BU4U Parents, Families, and Supporters webpage, there is a place to register for the newsletter. It will come into your email box at the beginning of every month, and it moves all around the campus. All campus partners are engaged in putting new information there for you that's timely and connected to your students. We've talked about so many student centers and so many places on campus because we really believe that the Brock experience is special. And that's part of something that we are professionally committed to. And so are student staff, and frankly, so are the students here on campus too. So there's lots of opportunities to support, and we hope that tonight has been helpful for you. That's it. That's it for our time tonight, folks. There are perhaps some questions that are left unanswered in the chat, and some of them might be a little more personal. If you'd like to use any of these links to send an email directly, you could send it directly to bu4u@brocku.ca, and someone, likely me or Nicole, will respond to you as soon as we can. So if there's something that you're still wondering about, make sure that you send it in to us, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Oh, yeah, okay. There's one little question here, Laura, before we sign off, only because I love this question and I think it's important. Laura, where do students go for writing support? Is there a writing center on campus?
Yes, well, this year we're launching the Writing Center that comes through Learning Services in our Learning Center program. So we have so many supports for that. So that's us. And we'll be expanding to showcase our writing supports a little bit later in the term this year. But yes, send your student our way. We would be very happy to help them with their writing.
That's important. So to the parent that asked one, thanks so much. Well, thanks everyone. We're ending 3 minutes early tonight, 3 minutes to 8. I hope this has been helpful for you, and we really look forward to seeing you at our October webinar. And we'll be publishing that date and the focus of that webinar on our Parents, Families, and Brock Supporters website, BU4U Family Connect. Thanks everyone. Have a wonderful evening.